I think they're kind of the same. My biggest hope and my biggest fear for video games, which is kind of what my book is about, is that my biggest hope for video games is that they just keep getting cooler until they can't possibly get any cooler. And when that happens is when video games will be like real life. And when you log on to play a video game, it'll be like being the main character in a virtual reality movie, where you can totally interact with your environment and interact with the other characters and kind of do whatever you want and live out any kind of fantasy that you want in this virtual game world, or play through like an interactive movie with your friends, and your friends could be on the other side of the country or in a different, or someone that you've never met on the other side of the world. Like, that's going to be amazing. But once video games get that amazing and can compete with, real life, that's when they're going to be more addictive than they've ever been. And there are already people, kids in South Korea who drop dead playing, Lineage because they haven't fed themselves in 3 days because they're so wrapped up in the game world. And that's just a two-dimensional game on a flat screen monitor that is already more compelling than real life, for some people. That's the thing about EverQuest and more World of Warcraft now. Like, there are people who work their day job and kind of structure their whole lives just so that they can continue playing this game because that's the best part of their life and is more compelling and more fun for them and more enjoyable than their real life. And the more realistic and the more immersive video games get, the more I think that will be a danger. And there are always going to be, people who overdo anything, but it's something about video games and the nature of it, simulating reality, I feel like makes a lot more people susceptible to that. Because once, and it was something I always thought about watching the old, like, Star Trek's The Next Generation. Like, if I had access to a holodeck, why would I ever do anything, ever? Especially go out and risk my life to explore space. I would just work whatever job I needed to until I could afford a holodeck and a replicator, and then I would just live in the holodeck with the replicator, and I would be set. And I think that might happen with video games. And that's something the idea that I explore in my book. Like, if the real world continues to get to be a more and more difficult place to exist, and the virtual world and the virtual worlds that we create to play in become more and more compelling and more enjoyable than real life, then will there be this mass exodus of human intellect into video games? And how much time will we spend in a simulated environment versus the real world, and will the real world suffer from neglect as a result of that? Like, I don't know, that seems like an extreme, but I can already see hints of it happening. Like, right now, everybody, almost everybody that you see is walking around with a little handheld computer in their pocket that connects them to this giant communications network that allows them to communicate with people all around the world and get news updates and all of that. And so this is this really super powerful communication device that everybody has, and most people use it to avoid communicating with the people around them. Like, you are on an airplane or a bus or a train or in a dentist's office, and all you see is people sitting alone and staring at their little handheld computer, playing a game or reading email or doing whatever. And it's a communication tool that serves to isolate us from each other, and it's almost like a social tool, like a way to avoid talking to people around you. And so that's really fascinating to me. And but it's also fascinating to me the way that video games and the internet are creating new human relationships. They allow scientists and doctors and artists all around the world to communicate and collaborate with each other, which is amazing. But they also, allow people to have relationships with other people that they've never met in the real world. Sometimes really deep, like intellectually, powerful relationships with other people. That's something I saw working, kind of the internet industry all through the 90s and the early aughts, was people who would meet other people online and become really enamored of them, and sometimes like move to another city to try living with this person, or people would get married or meet that way. And that's a whole new kind of human relationship that didn't exist 10 or 15 years ago. It's like a new thing. People can meet and fall in love and not have ever met in the real world. So I don't think it's necessary. So that's really amazing too. Like, I know there are kids out there who exist now because their parents met in World of Warcraft. Video games have changed the course of human evolution to some degree, and created whole new mating rituals and ways of social interaction that didn't exist, and that's as a result of the internet and video games. So it's going to be interesting to watch all of that evolve. Video games are going to get more and more real and connect more and more people around the world, but you know, also become more and more addictive at the same time. It's really, you know, it's going to be fascinating to watch. I have no idea how it's all going to turn out.